Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to our webinar today, Life-Centered Education 2.0. And so we're real excited because this is a really hot topic and a lot of good stuff we're going to be covering today. So first of all, I do want to do some introductions. My name is Richard Capone. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Let's Go Learn. And we have Dr. Dojonovic with us today, and she's the Executive Director for DCDT, which is a division of CEC. And so it's going to be an action-packed webinar, 30 minutes. You can take questions at the end, and we will be recording this. So I'm going to dive into it because we have a lot to cover. So let me go ahead and start. A little background, who's Let's Go Learn? We've been around for 24 years, and we do hardcore precision diagnostic assessment. So asking why is a student struggling in reading or math? So we're a platform that's been supporting special education pretty intensely. And that's why we sort of teamed up a little bit, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. So anyway, that's a little bit on Let's Go Learn. Now, in case you don't know, CEC is the Council of Exceptional Children. That is the one of the largest special education organization in the country, and it basically has lots of different divisions, 18 divisions, and one of those is DCDT. And so we're going to be talking about that a little bit, but I just want to make sure people know who CEC is as well. Because technically the LCE 2.0 is a product by CEC and DCDT. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and turn over to you, Stacie.
And we're really excited. So thank you, Richard. What Richard isn't letting come out through this enthusiasm is that the Council for Exceptional Children, as the voice and vision in your special education, the premier special education for us in the field of education, does have 18 special interest divisions, of which DCDT is a division on career development and transition. And when Richard says, to you, oh, this is something that we're working on with CEC. This is something that was so powerful that CEC has had the life-centered career education curriculum that was actually created by our founder, Dr. Don Berlin. So he founded in 1977. So it just makes sense that when we're looking at wanting to do, and he was a visionary and seeing that students with disabilities could actually really in 1977 looking at students making sure that they were ready and prepared for their adult roles and responsibilities was not something. So he really left a legacy to DCDT and CEC, and especially with starting the LCE curriculum. And so we're so excited when we're looking at, hey, coming together and saying we've had some changes. The last time the LCE curriculum was updated was in 2012. And I think we can all agree that we have had some changes to the special education and transition landscape since then. And even looking at the technology, we've had a lot of legal rulings, we can all say, and some new laws that are really driving transition services. And when we look at the high expectations we want for all students and the engagement we're trying to do and the empowerment, it really made sense for CEC and DCDT to revise that LCE curriculum, to look at these mandates, making sure we're integrating high leverage practices and evidence-based practices that align with the evolving demands of what life is like and what we're preparing students for. So we know we've seen, and as professionals in DCDT, we've used the LCE. So we've used it ourselves. The team that came together really thought this was great. And one of the things in transition planning for students and for us as professionals is just that power of collaboration and innovation. And I feel like that's what this team at CEC, DCDT, and Let's Go Learn really did by looking at combining, Dr. Berlin's timeless principles with cutting edge research that and practices of the transition and special education field with a robust framework for educators. We really think that this revised LCE will continue to serve as an indispensable tool, and you'll see why we wanted it powered by Let's Go Learn when Richard starts to demonstrate the curriculum itself. But we really want to make sure that we are equipping all educators. So if we just want to go on to the next slide, we really want to make sure that we're purposely supporting you. And, we talk about all the scaffolding and the evidence-based practices and the effective instruction to meet the diverse student populations that we're all serving in the schools, we really thought that it was important to have these resources embedded within the curriculum because everybody says, what do we all need? More time. We all need more time. So we really wanted to make sure. And the one thing that was something that the team really looked at was we wanted to make sure that anyone could confidently implement the lessons in varied settings with varied learners of differing abilities and needs. And you can see on the next slide, I really wanted to talk a little bit about, why we had this kind of modules and why we have these competencies and the structures, because we wanted to divide the curriculum into modules assigned with specific domains and competencies. We're looking at all the things, right? We're preparing students for adult roles and responsibilities. So we've got to look at community living, employment, and post-secondary education. So we're really looking at improving those students' outcomes. And we wanted the modules to really be, right? We're always talking about person-centered planning in our field. And we know that the research shows that that's what we need to do. And looking at that goal setting and self advocacy and self awareness, that we want to make sure that we can deliver a curriculum that could be standalone, or we can allow the educators to deliver instruction delivered to the unique needs and goals of each individual student. So it's a lot, that's a task to take on. And how can we design this? And you can see on the next slide that we really did look at differentiating the lessons. And this was the key that, as the team came together, making sure that when you look at this slide, these are all the things that we know we need to have, right? We need to have lessons that are designed with those multiple pathways for diverse learning needs. We need to have those clear objectives and all the lesson plans because that's what we're looking for. We do have in some cases, and you may need to skip over this, but there might be, we want to make sure that if you're a new educator, you could have those step-by-step instructions and options for differentiating the content, the process, and the assessment. We know that we have to integrate EBPs and those high leverage practices. So, having examples of explicit instruction, modeling. One of my favorite is peer mediated instructional strategies, the prompting strategies, so that researchers are being provided with research-based methods for teaching and reinforcing skills and ensuring that each lesson incorporates multiple means of engagement. We all know those UDL principles, right? Representations, actions, and expressions. And, making sure that the educators have all the resources that they need, regardless of that educator's background. There might be some educators that don't choose to use everything because they already have things in their script, but we don't want them having to spend more time looking for resources. On the next slide, you can see that this was the big thing. And I think that the strength of the LCE, and we've kept that with the LCE 2.0, is having those pre-assessment tools to help educators identify student readiness levels and then the post-assessment tools to measure growth and inform your next steps. We all know that that's important. So we really want to make sure that we have that progression of skills that kind of has that scaffolding approach that can guide those students from functional skills to advanced application. One of the things that, we did as a team from CEC and DCDT, and thank goodness having the feedback that Let's Go Learn was being able to provide us, is the lessons became so detailed that we needed the right technology, that if we were going to have all of these explicit instruction tools and strategies and breaking down tasks, that we actually had it set up and designed in a way that wasn't overwhelming for the educator that was going to log on and use these lessons. And that's where I think the professional development tools, the customized resources, the design, we really needed to partner with Let's Go Learn so that we could, just as we're saying that we need to collaborate as educators and related service providers, right, and families, so we could really have co-planning and co-teaching and co-delivery of transition instruction. We needed that co-planning with Let's Go Learn so we could sit down with people that understood that instructional technology design and how can we build this in. And you're going to hear from Richard, it wasn't just our lesson plan design and what we knew about evidence-based practices and high leverage practices. It was also designing tools and resources. And Let's Go Learn came up with the idea of the LCE 2.0 AI kind of chatbot and incorporating that in. And those were just things that we didn't even envision when we first sat down with Let's Go Learn, both CEC and DCDT. And that's what the exciting collaboration is, I think, as this project has evolved. And this is our goal. And I think that this is something that Richard and I had a lot of questions when we were fortunate enough. I see some people in our attendees that attended our session at CEC. And you asked about the scaffolds. The scaffolds in the LCE curriculum was something because we wanted to ensure that I know we talked about educators, regardless of their experience or level of teaching context, that they were equipped to provide effective instruction that was going to help improve our students' outcomes, because that's what we all want. We want all students to live, learn, and work and be prepared for their adult roles and responsibilities. That's something we can all agree on. But we wanted to make sure and that these lessons could be delivered in the general education classroom where we hope to see our students, resource settings, self-contained classrooms, and pre-ETS programs, after-school programs. But, we really had to have detailed curriculum, but we needed to also have it flexible enough that we could have it consistent. So we really wanted to make sure that you could deliver this with the fidelity, but also it could be delivered in multiple environments. And that's where I think the UDL really came into the revision of the LCE 2.0. Everybody wants to know, and we have a great guide of the competency areas, but again, it kind of goes back to what do our students need to know to fill their adult roles and responsibilities. So looking at those digital skills, self-care, career exploration, I think we think about independent living skills, but really think back to the core of what the LCE is what the LCE 2.0 has been true to, just adapting it with what we now know in 2025 with evidence-based practices in transition and high leverage practices for teaching, but also how we've really changed. I mean, I think digital skills was not something we were thinking about, but we are certainly thinking about that now. But we continue to think about the importance of building and maintaining relationships and self-advocacy. So you're going to see a lot of similar areas from LCE 2.0, but you will see that some things have changed. I think that as we were going through things, financial management and security and privacy workplace dynamics is a little bit different in 2025 than it was in 2005. So, we're keeping core to what we know students need to know, but just making sure that we were updating for the current society. And I know this is what you've all been waiting for, and you will see the excitement and why DCDT and CEC really look towards this. I love the term that I get to hear our executive director, Chad Rummel, say it is powered by LC. LCE 2.0 is powered by Let's Go Learn, and you will see why he enthusiastically says that.
All right. Thank you so much. And as I go forward, feel free to chime in when I miss things. All right. So Stacie did mention that these are three main domains, and then there are subdomains. We will be attaching to that email a list of all the subcompetencies. Okay, so you'll get that, and we'll also give you a sample lesson as well. All right, so I'm going to just jump into a little bit. So just talking about why CEC and DCDT teamed up with us. Nowadays what happens is, so our background is we do hardcore reading and math diagnostic assessment with SDI for special education departments and also entire districts, but we're case endorsed. But we've been doing this for a long time. So we know how to do a computer adaptive assessment. We know how to generate all these prescriptive reports connected to every single kind of SIS system there is. We know how to do tech support. We know how to do training. There's a whole slew of skills and services that need to be offered to the LEA to support you. So that's why we do this. You know, CEC is not in the business of producing a online platform. So we're partnering and providing that extra. Of course, they provide the expertise of the product. And they, of course, we're going to be working very closely with them to make sure the proper training is available as well. So we are a sort of a best-in-class special education tool. That's sort of the background of why we're working together. Now, of course, being in the special education market, you know, it's really important. It's not just reading and math, it's transition. So there's a lot of other services that can sort of complement each other as well. And so that's another reason why it's important for us to partner. Okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and jump into the fun part. I'm already logged into account. This is a beta account, so it is in beta right now. It's slated for going live June 1st, but we will be able to start doing betas earlier so people can actually try it. But for the most part, it's all pretty functional. There's this homepage has to be updated with all the information, help notes, backgrounds, blah blah blah. But when you come over here in our system, so this is what a teacher would see. They would log in, they have information on training, basically some different stuff here. They can go over here and see their class of students. They can select different classes. Again, we can connect to SIS systems. We can sync this on a daily basis. That's pretty much expected nowadays. We have a Q testing engine, but coming over here is going to be the teacher-led lesson plans. So it says LCE lessons. Now from here, I can go ahead and jump into the three core domains. So I can go into community living. I could go ahead and select anything. So I'm going to select personal hygiene right now, and then I'll select a sub competency, social and mental benefits. Now we see the lessons right here. And so this is where the teachers say, okay, well, I want to know how to teach this. I want to take a look at it. And this is all the lessons that Stacie was talking about. So I click on this here, and here it is. You could print this, you could download it, you could scroll down. I know this is a little tiny type, but I just sort of want you to see. You can see the standard, the I can statement, the learning objective, materials and resources. It goes on, and these are long. This is a lot of information for every single lesson plan, right? And then down here it has steps, it has scripts, UDL strategies, different parts, right? So this is what Stacie was describing and talking about. Quite extensive. We're also going to allow some other little bells and whistles here, like if you want to just print out one section, because you know you don't always want to waste a lot of paper, or so we'll have some more controls, and those things that we're going to be adding over the next few weeks. But that's sort of it in a nutshell. Let me back up. If I come back over here, the other thing I could do is I could say, well, I want to add that one to my favorites. So I can click there and I could put use first week of April, right? Save. Now this is going to be over here in my favorites. And I see I added, I think this is one I just added. Yeah, use first week of April. It shows up. We already got some input. We're going to add like a bunch of groups. So not just a single star. We're going to add some other groups. So that way you could sort of say maybe you're trying to save stuff for different periods of time. So we're going to be adding different things like that as well. Okay. Now also there are some materials that are tied to it. I think this lesson doesn't have anything right now, but if some of the lessons require some supporting documents, like maybe a rubric or a worksheet, you click on materials and it will have it listed here. And that's stuff that we can add over time, right? So sometimes if we get stuff we realize, hey, we want to add this. That's another thing that's great about this. This is on a web-based system, so we can update anything whenever we need to, too. So as more stuff comes out, I mean, we're going to have all the 270 lessons, but when more things come out, we can add it or modify it. Okay, so that's sort of the nutshell of the teacher-led lesson plans. The other piece, of course, is to come over into the testing engine and say, okay, well, I want to go ahead and queue up a test for someone. So let's say I want to queue up a lesson plan. I would be able to come over here and let's see, LCE. Right now, I just typing in LCE, but the idea is you could type in the name of the lesson plan or the subcompetency, and then you could queue up a quiz. So this is something you could queue up the student with before, and then you could also test them again afterwards to do pre-post testing. And so, you know, it's a modern testing engine, it has audio support, questions are read to them, choices are read to them. The answers are randomized. So that way, if you have kids taking the same quiz together, they can't look over each other's shoulders, right, and see what they're answering. And so again, this is a modern testing platform. You know, most of our assessments are hardcore reading and math diagnostics with formative testing as well. But this is a piece that fits into the formative testing. Okay, so that is sort of the basics. The other piece that Stacie mentioned is we do have, we are been doing a lot in AI. We actually have an AI assistant now. This AI assistant here allows a teacher to write a first draft PLAF based on our data. But what we're going to do is in LCEs, we're going to integrate it into here so that it's an expert on LCE. So it'll know all the lessons, the lesson numbers. It'll have backgrounds on LCE, so you can ask it questions. You know, that's the power of AI is you could use natural language searching. And so we also think that's another thing that's really important in this day and age. Everything is moving towards AI assisted search. So that way you can just ask it naturally and you don't have to worry about it not finding it because you use a synonym to describe something.
And I think as Richard is saying that he, integrated this and they're working on refining it and giving us the tools and the resources, I think that's what I'm most excited about the platform is that, it is a platform that is so nimble, Richard, and that, it enables us as the ability, you've designed a platform that will allow CEC and DCDT to continue to add resources and we'll keep adding new content. And that's something that we have the ability to do. So I think that's an additional added feature as well.
Yeah, and another thing we have too is, our customers expect a data portal. So we have a data portal where people can export data. Eventually we may have, I don't know, there may be some other broader reports we want to produce for you all, where you say, hey, I need to be able to have a usage report of all the students who've taken quizzes, and that's the kind of stuff you have when we have a data warehouse connected to our platform. So we do have that. Because, obviously with math and reading, people demand that. But
And I think that that's an important thing to point out is that it does have that capability to give us that data if folks are using these pre and post assessments to form their, post-secondary goals and their transition goals and their IEPs, and that we're going to continue to refine that, I think is an important point. I didn't know if we wanted to mention that the training that would be available as well on the LCE 2.0, or that it is something that is available to folks.
yes, so we will have asynchronous training as well as live training options. So it's really depending on what you want. Some of the stuff will be just some pre-recorded things, so people can just click on there and say, okay, how do I use it? We could give you a demo in 10, 15 minutes for a new teacher. But also, of course, depending on the licensing or whatever, we can do virtual trainings, we do on-site trainings. So whatever you want. We understand, being around for 24 years, that training and implementation and fidelity is so important. And so we're gonna provide it whatever you need. If you do have questions about LCE, LCE at letsgolearn.com is going to be where you can direct those for a quote or for a request for a demo. That's going to be the email you send it to get any of that information. And then I think right now we have 5 minutes left, so this is good timing. So let's go ahead and take some questions about this. And let me see. So there is a question dialog box. You guys could enter it in there if you have any questions. And actually, before I do the questions, I do want to mention too, the one other thing we have also is, we have instruction in reading and math, but we also do have student-led online instructions that some of it is in transition. So it's health, digital literacy, work-life skills, and financial literacy. And so some of that will overlap, but that's sort of a supplement, a complementary product, because I think in transition, everyone uses multiple products. But this is sort of like your gold standard teacher-led lesson plans. But we have some optional lessons, and you may also be using some other products out there too, which I think is great. Students need different lessons, and you want to have, be able to tend to their needs. All right, so we have the first question. When will pricing be available? So pricing is actually available now. So you can go ahead and send that email to LCE at letsgolearn.com. Pricing is basically a per teacher pricing. That's what the LCE 1.0 product had. So it depends on how many teachers in your organization and how many need it. So that's a great question. Okay, so how will LCE 1.0 to 2.0 happen since we have a license that ends in October? So basically, the product is being discontinued on the old platform. So you will have to transition to 2.0. If your licensing continues into October or whatever, we would do a licensing that picks up from that point when your license expires. So, for some cases, maybe there might be a proration to get you onto an annual cycle or however you want to do it. But we'll definitely work with you. We're used to doing stuff like that. So just send that an email to that LCE at letsgolearn.com. Yeah, and I think we answered this. What kind of trainings are you looking at doing? Absolutely. Pre-recorded, online, virtual, live, whatever you want to do, we can do it. We have realized a long time ago that we have to accommodate your schedule because, you guys are busy and schools have a lot of restrictions on how sometimes you can do PD. So we're going to do whatever we need to accommodate you guys. Is there a multiple year commitment available? Yes, we do have a multiple year commitment. Basically, if someone does a 2 year licensing, it's basically like a 10% discount. And if you do a 3 year, it's a 20% discount, which is really good. So I know when people are committed to it, a lot of times, hey, if you know you're going to get it multiple years, you might as well try to go for the multi-year commitment to get a discount. Tell us a little bit more about the formative testing. How does that work? So I didn't show you that much. I apologize, but as a teacher, the idea is you can go into the lesson and then let's say you're working on a lesson, we're going to cross-reference it too. So if you're teaching this lesson, you can hit a queue up quiz, and then it would go to the assessment queuing mechanism, and then you could select the students you want to queue, right? So we'll do it both directions. Or you can go into your class list and find the students and queue up a quiz for them. But I think sometimes it's nice to having that cross-reference because, there's 270 lessons. You may want to very quickly queue things up as you're working on it. You may be covering 5 or 6 lessons, right? So we cross-reference it to make it easy for you. So hopefully that answered that question. All right. It's pretty good. That was efficient. Those questions all popped up really fast. Okay, here's another one. Is it possible to get the slideshow that we shared today? Absolutely. When we send the email, you'll get the slides, you'll get a video recording, you'll get a PDF of all the sub-competencies, and you'll get a sample lesson. So the email that's going to come out probably Monday will have all of that in it, as long as you're registered. Okay. All right. Stacie, any last words?
Well, I just think you know how excited we are, and we're excited to grow and learn. I think CEC, DCDT, Let's Go Learn, and the transition field all wants the same thing, is just to make sure that all our kids are living, learning, and working. So we appreciate everyone's enthusiasm, and I think we'll continue to grow this together. Oh, and Andrea said thank you. She's totally excited. So thank you, Andrea, for your excitement. We're excited too at CEC and DCDT.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good rest of your day, and we'll be sending you an email within the next couple business days. Thank you.